Hello Exiles, and welcome to Elementalist Righteous Fire. Today I wanted to make this video before it became the nighttime when I'm super tired after grinding a bunch of content, so that way I could be a little bit more coherent when I'm explaining things. To start off with, I also wanted to get this video out so that way I could go over information that people are basically asking me pretty frequent questions while I'm streaming, and so that way I could have a decent little FAQ to help you understand a lot of these answers. A lot of stuff is simple. You don't necessarily have to pay attention to this. If you're pretty used to Righteous Fire, you might not necessarily need these answers. But people that are new to it, this is for you guys. If you're having issues with mana degen problems, you want to look down this list of different things to do to try basically changing up what you currently have to try to improve your problem. If you're having life degen problems, look through this list of things to do. And I'm going basically over the main points of where this is what you might be missing if you don't have mana sustain. If you don't have life sustain, you might be missing this. If you have some of these problems, great ways to fix them additionally is getting some nice cheap gear items like Shaper Seed, like Kikuzaro, like Sophal's Frame, here with flat mana / mana percent regen rate, mana recovery rate. You can get that mod on a belt, which is pretty great. So this is all some nice ways to basically fix life sustain, fix mana sustain, and I figured I'd put this out here so that way you can look through this list and solve those problems. After that, I often get questions about rocking EE and EO for Elemental Overload and Elemental Equilibrium. It basically comes down to these two skills. It's Orbistorms or it's Stormbrand. Stormbrand's better for bossing, Orbistorms is better for mapping. I generally prefer Orbistorms, but it's really up to you. Play with both of them, see which one you like better. Keep it at level 1. Both of them, they don't matter. If you get more levels, it's not important to us. And if they're lower level, then if we do a Reflect map, they'll do less damage to us, and we can run Reflect very smoothly. After that, why X Ascendancy? I have a lot of people ask me, do I do Chieftain, do I do Elementalist, do I do Inquisitor, Trickster, etc.? Right now, the way I describe it is I think Elementalist is the fastest, I think it's going to have the best AoE, and I think it's going to have the best overall damage. After that, I think Chieftain is the best build in terms of being friendly to somebody who's starting out RF. I'd recommend my RF Tank Guide if you're new to RF. I think if you want a really kind of comfortable playstyle, I think this is the way I'd recommend. As for Inquisitor, I think this is a similar scenario with Chieftain where I think it's going to be very tanky and very high sustain, possibly the highest sustain for a Righteous Field ever. And I'd recommend checking out Pox for this. He's making a guide and he's guide? It said Vide or something. He's making a guide and he's updating it regularly, so definitely check him out. I've had a lot of people ask me about Inquisitor RF. I'm not really investigating or theory crafting it a ton, but Pox himself is, and he's playing with it and he's testing it out. So if there's somebody that's going to give you a good answer on this stuff, it's him. He streams a lot. He's very friendly, answers questions all the time. Great guy. As for Trickster, Guardian, Jug, I think Trickster's still pretty good for ES, but honestly at this point, Elementalist might even be stronger for like low life ES than Trickster is. As for Guardian, I think it requires a lot of currency to get to the point where it feels good, and I really wouldn't recommend it. As for Jug, I think this can be very tanky, but it's generally the lowest damage, and so it doesn't feel the greatest while bossing if you take forever to basically kill a boss. After that, for Golems, this is for specifically in reference to Elementalist build. First lab, you want to make sure you get the Stone Golem, the Flame Golem, and the Lightning Golem. It's very important you have one of each, because each of them gives you important buffs, which I go over in the description behind each of the Golems. And then when you get the Cruel Lab, you'll add in the Chaos Golem, which will give you Fizz Reduction, which is very important. And then finally, we'll get the Ice Golem eventually when we get an Anima Stone for +1 additional Golem. This will give us buff effect, and it'll give us increased crit chance, which will help our Elemental Overload uptime. After that, last but not least, probably the most important thing, these are mistakes that will ruin your build. You want to make sure you don't make these mistakes. And they are, 1, do not have flat fire anywhere to spells on your gear. Also, if you're using Pyre Rings, you cannot have cold dispels, so keep that in mind. A simple way to know whether or not you're bricking this in your build is to check your tooltip on your Orbistorms and see if it says anything but lightning damage. If it says fire damage in this tooltip here, it is bricking your EE, and it will ruin your damage in Path of Exile. After that, this one is a fairly common mistake we run into occasionally, and that's not capping your fire res. You want to make sure you're at max cap of 75% fire res. If you're not at max cap, you're going to have all sorts of sustain issues. So these are just some of the most common questions I got asked while streaming today and yesterday. I'll probably end up maybe adding to this list and including this in description in the future update videos if I get more common questions that I realize I didn't cover in this frequently asked questions guide here. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what things you need to do if you're having any issues with the build. Now let's get into the build upgrades we've made today. Main thing we've done is we've gotten mana gear. Mana gear of being Cloak and Defiance and Atziri's Foible. These are two of the most important pieces for making a successful Mind Over Matter build. They give you a bunch of regeneration, a bunch of sustain, but unfortunately it is not enough to get Agnostic going yet. We're going to need mana regen on our rings and more than likely mana recovery rate on our belt. All these things mixed together will be very important for us getting to the point where we can start using Agnostic and start feeling like we have a very good sustain in our build. But its upgrades we'll make shortly, probably by the end of today / tomorrow when I put out my next guide. I'll have made the upgrades and I'll be Agnostic by tomorrow. That is the plan I'm going for. Just wanted to give you guys a quick little update of where we are on the gear here. And then, of course, as always, I want to give you guys a quick showcase. I got Veritania, and then this time it's the second level of Veritania. We've done a whole nother round of Watchstones, and this is the one Watchstone Veritania. So it's a little bit of an upgrade from the previous one. Just figured I should do this one real quick, showcase where we're at level 85. Gotta stay away from porcupines. If you have porcupines, at this point our sustain is not good enough, and our mitigation is not good enough. I have plans for upgrades we're going to make that is going to get us to the mitigation level where we can charge into a porcupine pack and not die, but the build is not there yet. Currently, the way we have it set up, not enough mitigation to get away with charging into those porcupine packs. If you want to... Oh, martyrs are going to get us killed. You got to stay away from those. This is another thing you don't want to charge into, is a bunch of martyrs all exploding will get you killed. We'll go ahead and kill this guy here. We'll go ahead and fight Veritania. And so, right now, the AoE is fantastic. The damage is looking pretty good, and I'm excited to level this thing up further. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm realizing now I didn't cover gem links for support gems, so I'm going to include that in the description, and that way you guys can check that out there. Real quick, one thing I forgot to go over is, of course, the passive tree changes we've made. The main adaptations we've made is we've gone all the way over to getting 2 more jewel sockets with just double damage jewels. These were basically 1 alch, 1 cast. They're cheap jewels to get. Eventually, I'm going to take the time to actually start doing more alt spamming and regaling until we get Burning Bright with an additional notable here. Something like Smoking Remains, something with % damage. Really, any other notable will be fine, will be decent. That's what we're going to be shooting for in these 2 additional notables here. Other than that, we started picking up more mana nodes with Battle Rouse, Dynamo. Not sure if I picked up mana nodes anywhere else. Oh, I anointed Mystic Bulwark just because it's a cheap notable at 3 teals. With Sophal's Frame, it gives us 26 blocks, so it gets 20% or 26% mana regen, 6 block for spell damage, and 15% mana, increase maximum mana. So it's a nice little cheap notable that gets us a little bit something. If you want more damage that's cheap, Divine Judgments is always a good cheap notable. Really, it's just about getting a notable that's decent and helps us out in a decently big way. So that will pretty much settle it for this current update of the build. I will include the PAB of this. And as for this extra gem slot, I just remember now, somebody asked me about this. I'm planning on using Ice Golem here, but before then you can use a Flammability Curse, Despair Curse. Potentially for flasks, it might be the play to get a Witchfire Brew, which I'm thinking about doing. So that way we can despair enemies as we run through packs. It'll be very nice for basically increased damage when running through maps. So things to consider for upgrades and developing this build. I will be hopefully posting another video tomorrow with some significant changes in terms of getting Agnostic prepared, so that way you guys can see what kind of gear you need to get Agnostic going, as just Atziri's Foible and Cloak of Defiance and some mana nodes are not going to be enough to get Atziri's or Agnosticism going with Righteous Fire because of the property of Agnosticism burning through itself and not considering your life regen for sustain on your life pool. So that's basically it. I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for watching as always.